Hello and welcome to another video. As you know, my name is Jeffrey. This is the Inquisitive Universe and you're welcome once again. So in today's video, I want to talk about the top 5 SoCs that you can get on a budget. The top 5 SoCs that you can get on a budget if you're a student, if you are somebody who's strapped for cash, and you want to play games. For example, you're looking for a decent or acceptable level of performance, or you want to get into the social media sphere, you want to make videos, you want to make TikToks, you want to make snippets of stuff, or you just want to capture stuff around you and then like put online. There is a certain level of performance that you should be aiming for at the barest minimum, because I think people are looking for this information out there. A few people have asked me, like, Jeff, if I really want to do videos or if I really want to play games, like, what is the lowest SoC that I can get? And that's why I'm making this video for you guys. Okay, that's why I'm doing this, because I think when people want to play games and when people want to get into social media space or just need a decent, acceptable level of performance from a phone, they usually get extreme, very extreme examples or very extreme advice. Though some people tell you, pick any phone. Our phone's not the same, just pick any phone. And this leads them down the route of buying entry-level phones that run 32-bit Android, that won't be able to play games, that have poor camera performance, that won't handle social media well. They'll be stuck with Facebook Lite and TikTok Lite, and then won't be able to access other bigger platforms like Instagram, like Snapchat, and so on and so forth. Then the other advice on the other side is also another extreme. They'll tell you that you want to make videos, you must get the latest iPhone, you must get a Samsung Galaxy S series phone, and they'll be like, I can't afford that, and you're not ready. Then that's kind of extreme advice that people tend to give most of the time. So that's why I'm here to give you something in the middle. I'm not going to be extreme. I'm not an extremist. I'll give you something in the middle, somewhere where like your budget will match good performance, and then will match decent level of being able to play games, and then handle camera stuff, and then be able to upload videos online, and not just upload them online. And you can also edit them on your phone and then manage your socials from your phone. You get a decent level of performance from these ones. Now, before I start listing these SoCs, I want you to know that these are budget / lower mid-range SoCs. And when I say lower mid-range, we're scraping the bottom of the lower mid-range barrel, the very bottom. So if you're going to be recording videos with this one, I'm going to need to let you know that the performance is not going to be all that, which means that you're going to need to take the principles of photography very seriously, and then you're going to be able to work on your lighting. If you're going to be capturing yourself, get a ring light or something, or shoot in daylight where there's good light from ambient light sources, like from your window, for example. Or if you're going to be capturing outside scenes, make sure you do so in the morning or in the evening when the sunlight is slanting, when the sun is rising or when the sun is setting, like that. Not when the sun is directly overhead. You won't get the best results that way. So if you're going to be playing games, please, you're going to know that these ones are going to be lower settings to mid settings, or mid settings to low settings. You're not going to be able to get the best settings here, unfortunately so, because these ones, their performance are bottom of the lower mid-range, scraping the bottom of the lower mid-range. We're scraping the bottom, the very bottom of the lower mid-range. So you're going to be scrounging for performance, you're going to be scraping for performance. These ones won't play AAA titles like Apex Legends, for example, like Fortnite, like Grid Autosports, like NBA 2K, like Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. These SoCs won't play it, but they'll play most games around. They'll play eFootball, they'll play PUBG, they'll play Call of Duty Mobile, the basic one. They'll play most of the games out there, but just not the AAA titles. So please keep that in mind. The very first SoCs on my list, number 5, is the Helio G85 and G80, or G80, G85. They're both the same thing, really, because they both have the same level of performance. They're both lower mid-range SoCs. I think they're budget now, because new SoCs have come in and pushed them down into the budget segment. G80, G85 are mostly the same thing. There's a little bit of a power boost on the G85 over the G80, so you may want to pick the G85 over the G80, but generally they're the same thing. If you're getting the G80 SoC, it's the same as getting the G85. There really isn't much to that. So this one, like I said earlier, is going to give you a very decent level of performance. Camera ability on the G85 is not all that. It's not all that, because MediaTek on their older G series SoCs, didn't really do much on camera performance. They mostly are all about CPU performance and gaming, because the G series was made for gaming. But besides that, the G80, the G85 are decent enough. So if you can afford more, then you should probably be looking at phones with the Unisoc T618. If you can afford more, you should be looking at phones with the Unisoc T618. The T618 is also another very decent one. What is mostly holding the T618 back? It's its lack of optimization. Now, like I've always said, I've said it in a previous video, but I'm going to quickly run through it. Performance, that is what your phone can do, is mostly dependent on two factors: the hardware, that's the SoC on board, and the software. So most of the time, most people look at hardware and then just forget about it. But what the software developers do is very, very important. If the software developers do not take a specific SoC, for example, and optimize software or make software run easier and smoother for it, it's going to be hit or miss most of the time. And most software developers usually, like optimize for MediaTek and Qualcomm in the Android space, maybe some Exynos, but it's mostly MediaTek and Qualcomm. They don't really optimize for Unisoc, and that's mostly the problem that has been holding Unisoc back. If not, Unisoc SoCs should have a very good amount of performance, but this lack of software optimization is mostly killing them. I think they should really work or liaise more with software developers so that their SoCs get more mainstream recognition, and then boom, people are going to be willing to like pick their SoCs because they've got good ones. It's just that they're not very optimized. So if we're going to move on from the number 4, we're going to move on to number 3, which is the Helio G88. And the Helio G88 is basically just a sped up version of the G80, G85 with better camera support, which I am actually yet to see in real life, because I don't know if it's the companies that have been underutilizing the Helio G88, but the camera performance hasn't really been pulling up any trees. So remember what I said earlier, you're going to need to be more proactive when you're using these phones, especially with your lighting and your angles and your editing and all that. So the G85 is got good performance, good enough performance for you to be able to run most games at mid settings, right? At mid settings, but beyond that, it can run social media well, full version of Android and all that, but the camera performance leaves a little to be desired. So you're going to need to work on that one by yourself. You're going to need to take action. So let's move on. Let's go on to our number 2, and that is the Snapdragon 680. The Snapdragon 680 is a very solid SoC. It's very solid, lower mid-range. It's got very good level of performance, and Qualcomm have made sure that the 680 is very supported. The 680 is also very popular. You'd find it a lot. The only problem with the Snapdragon 680 is going to be the amount, that is the price of the phone that you find it in, because Qualcomm SoCs are generally pricey. So that's what you're going to be needing to put in mind. If not, generally, when it comes to performance, the 680 and the G88 and possibly the T618 are on the same level when it comes to performance. What separates them most of the time is that the 680 is better supported by software developers, and for that it's more pricey. It's Qualcomm. So, and it's also got like demonstrably better camera performance as well, better software algorithms on board. And so it makes it easier for companies who use the 680 SoC to be able to support it. So now that we've known our number 2, before moving on to number 1, let's look at our honorable mentions, and that includes older SoCs. If you can still find them, like the Helio G80, for example, the T606, the T610, the Snapdragon 460. These are also honorable mentions. If you find these ones, they'll also be manageable enough for you to be able to do what you want to do. That is, play games at an acceptable level, and then get into the social media space, especially the 460. But compared to the other ones I mentioned, these ones are like further down the totem pole. So it is what it is. Our number 1 finally is the Snapdragon 685, and the Snapdragon 685 is basically a faster version of the 680 with better camera support. It's the 685 is to the 680 what the G88 is to the G80 and G85. So basically the same SoC, just slightly better specs. From I think the camera support for the 685, this Snapdragon 685 was moved up to 108 from 64 megapixels, and then the clock speed was also increased from, I think, from 2.4 to possibly 2.7, 2.8 to even give better performance. So the 685 is possibly on the level of what the 710, Snapdragon 710 or the 712 was, 5 years prior. So that's that. Those are the top 5 SoCs with honorable mentions that you can get on a budget. These ones will be able to give you an acceptable level of camera output, and they can run most games fine, just not AAA titles. Most games at mid to low settings, just not AAA titles like Grid Autosport or NBA 2K or Apex Legends, as a Call of Duty Mobile or Call of Duty Warzone, as I've earlier mentioned. So I think that's that. If these ones will be decent for you, you should avoid entry level SoCs if you know you want to be doing serious stuff on your phone. Entry level SoCs like the G36, the G37, right? You should be avoiding those. Exynos 850. You should really, if you check a phone, before you buy any phone, check the processor. If you go to GSM Arena or KeyMovie and then check the processor, and then if you see any of these entry level SoCs, run away. If you want to know what entry level SoCs are, I'm going to encourage you to check the top 100 smartphone processors or top 100 smartphone SoCs, and I think I have a list up there that is ranking first on Google, or I think not just Google, it's also on Bing as well, and DuckDuckGo. Top 100 smartphone SoCs. Google that and then check it out, and then you'd see where I clearly marked them: flagship killer, premium mid-range, upper mid-range, lower mid-range, budget, entry level. Avoid those entry level SoCs for your own good. If you're going to buy a phone, make sure it has at least up to 4 gigs of RAM. I think that should be standard these days. And then we move. You don't need a high end, you don't need to buy entry level to be able to do stuff with your phone. That's why we've got the mid-range. So cheers, I will be leaving this one. Now please do make sure to like, subscribe and share. Like, subscribe and share. That's what helps small channels like mine to grow. I'm not affiliated to anybody. I have no backing. I'm just a guy who makes videos in his bedroom in the middle of the night. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.